Hey everybody, I hope your week is going well. We are in week 2 now of the group presentation project, or in this case, the group project for the online course. Today's video is going to focus on a project walkthrough, some of my expectations and some of the things you guys can try to attribute to your particular projects and to be mindful of as well. A couple of things I do want to address prior to that, however, is that the couple of groups have already emailed me, given me their topic, and addressed any issues they've had with certain group members. One thing I will say is that the discussion board is available. Some of you guys are using it regularly. Others are utilizing email. There has been a little bit of crossover between some group members using email and some group members using the discussion forum. I will suggest that it is probably beneficial for everyone to try to be on the same page. So please make sure to check both the discussion forum and the email of your group members. Remember, if you need group member emails, it is best to email me earlier in the week. Some of you didn't email me until Saturday this week, so you're kind of scrambling last minute. You've been given 2 weeks to work on this particular project. Some of you are well ahead of the curve and you've already got your topic and you've already delegated different responsibilities, and others are waiting till last minute. Remember, it is always better to address it earlier rather than later. Check your email, check the discussion forum. If you need other group members' emails, it is up to you to be proactive and either talk to me or use the discussion forum to try to get everybody's email. So keep that in mind as well. In regards to the group project, the majority of you will probably end up doing a video or a PowerPoint because it allows you to incorporate everybody. If you decide to do this method, here's a couple things that you should be mindful of. First and foremost, manage your time. So consider this prior to putting the project together. Now keep in mind, since this is an online project, you guys do not have a time limit. However, as with previous projects, I would highly recommend doing a voiceover so that it would appear as if you are presenting it to me. So as I go through the project, one thing that you want to make sure is that everybody is accounted for, at least who is contributing. So whether that's one person incorporating a voiceover for their partners or everyone just adding into different parts of the project, it is up to your group to figure that out. Again, you guys can email different audio sections if you would like, and as long as I know what audio belongs to what particular part of the presentation, I can go along with it. You also want to make sure that you either get your audience thinking or you get them informed. You want to make sure that you establish context, your key areas of focus, and make sure that your argumentative thesis is clearly established. Make sure that you develop sections and make sure class is engaged. Obviously, since you are not presenting to the class, I will address how you can kind of keep your audience engaged and what type of methods you can use to help teach the argument opposed to just simply informing about it. Make sure to clarify any video, audio, or image examples prior to you addressing them or subsequently in an examination. Make sure that you connect between transitions and make sure you leave a lasting impression, whether you are trying to tie everything together or gauge where your audience stands. So let's go through each one of these particular bullet points and address them specifically. Now, obviously, an online course, the primary goal for these 2 weeks is to obviously complete the project and to complete the group annotated bibliography. You guys are not being given any other homework other than this, so time management is crucial. You guys need to be able to communicate, keep regular correspondence with each other, whether you're in this class, an online class, or at a class in your traditional classroom. You would need to make sure that your time is being managed properly. So whether you're coordinating a particular time of the day or trying to coordinate different times for you guys to contribute, that's something you will need to do outside in the email world or in the discussion forum. But either way, don't wait to the last minute to work on this particular aspects. What's good about the group project is that each of you are not taking on an entire project by yourself. You're really taking on different sections. It's really just up to you guys to determine how each person can contribute in their various ways and utilizing the time they have to their advantages. In terms of activities, obviously, since you will not be getting your class involved, this is really being directed to me. You can still provide different articles that you want me to read if that is part of your project. You can include a survey with your project. You can include a discussion with your project as well. Time out your talking points. Obviously, there is no time limit for this. If we were in a regular class, that would be of a concern. Manage your sections. This is something that you want to make sure that you are doing as well. I don't mind you guys including video, audio, images, but make sure that you are still doing more work than your examples, that you have given me more explanation from your perspective, and don't believe that your video or audio examples will be deduced exactly what you were trying to get across. So make sure that that is clarified. And then leave room for questions. That's really more designed for my in-class or traditional classrooms. So get them thinking or get them informed. Oftentimes, groups like to open with a survey. So whether that's with SurveyMonkey, Kahoot, Socrative, each of these different social forums allows the audience to kind of get informed beyond simply just telling them something. So it allows them to reflect, it allows them to think, and if you were in a traditional classroom, it would allow you to sort of gauge your audience and where they are. And so this is something that you could consider integrating into your particular project. Obviously, I could take the survey and I could see how you go beyond simply just informing the audience about your topic. However, for those of you who are not going to utilize or might not utilize some of those methods, you want to make sure that you at least inform and provide some preliminary context for your audience. So say, for example, our particular argumentative topic is mental health. I might open with a preliminary question to the class or in the project in regards to a survey. I might ask if anybody has any ties to mental health, if anyone suffers from OCD, bipolar, anxiety. These are all different things that get people talking, get people involved, and get people thinking about their own personal connection. I might then segue into a discussion or background about mental health, the current culture that surrounds it, the progress that has been made, and some of the areas of concern that still might weigh on people. Therapy, being overly medicated, cultural perspective on people dealing with mental health opposed to people who don't have to deal with mental health issues. So these are all things that I could potentially make my argument about. So how do you get them thinking? Ask preliminary questions, engage in an introductory conversation. Like I said, take surveys, play a game, break up into groups if you were in a traditional classroom, act out a scene that correlates to your topic. So one thing that I saw a group do one time was in regards to mental health. They had 3 people. One person played the role of someone who was dealing with severe social anxiety. One person was dealing with someone who didn't necessarily understand the individual, so they lashed out at them. They became disconnected from them. They criticized them. And then the other person played the role of someone who was more sympathetic, who listened to the person, who gave them an ear to be available to them to show the difference with how certain people might view people with mental health or anxiety or depression, how other people can distance themselves from them because they don't necessarily empathize. So in this case, I might open my project with questions like this. In what ways have you been exposed to mental health issues in your life? Have you or anyone you have known dealt with or deal with mental health matters such as anxiety, depression, or bipolar disorder? Now, this is a question designed to kind of gauge my audience, to get them thinking about mental health, to also kind of narrow my particular focus about particular areas of mental health. Because obviously, when you're arguing, you can either address a larger issue or you can look at something more specific in terms of what your point of entry is going to be. Additionally, maybe a subsequent question like, what are your thoughts on mental health concerns? How do you react to people who feel that mental health issues are not as serious as people make them out to be? Next, you want to make sure that you establish context, your key areas of focus, and your thesis. So any background you might have about your particular topic, you can integrate into your project. This can be done in a voiceover. This can be done in a video. One thing that you want to be mindful, though, is that you always establish context for whatever it is you're showing. So, and I'll give you an example of that in a second. In this case, my particular thesis might be, despite our cultural advancements in examining how the brain works, there are still areas of mental health that are unexamined or criticized due to a lack of understanding. Eventually, in my project, I would then go on to address the areas that are unexamined or the areas that are often criticized in our culture. And I would make the argument that potentially these areas would be less criticized or less critically examined if people had a better understanding of people who deal with this, educate people better, give them an illustration of people who are going through this, and maybe they can realize that it might be a family member, it might be a friend, it might be a loved one who's going through this, but it's all under the surface, so it's hard to often see sometimes. Develop sections and make sure class is engaged. Consider establishing various points of discussion. Now, under the group writing section on Blackboard, you will see the area for group project examples. Under the PowerPoint examples, you will see an example titled Media Violence. This was a recent project that one of the groups established in my traditional classes. And what was great about this project is they went through each of their particular sections. Each section was given to a respective group member. But after each particular section, they had a discussion point. This kind of slowed the pace of the project down. And it also allowed the audience to stay involved. The class engaged with the audience, they conversed with them, they asked these particular questions, and it allowed the audience to not only stay on track with what the particular argument was, it allowed the group to see how the audience might have been changing through each of the different parts of the discussion and gotten different points of view from the audience as they went on with their particular argument. So as you can see here, there were several different discussion point areas that the group attended to, and each discussion point checkpoint was addressed by a different group member. So this is a kind of good way to keep pace of the project consistent and then also keep the audience engaged, because a lot of times it's very easy just to give information and then lose track of where audience might be. What's nice about this is that it keeps the audience connected and it doesn't allow you to get too far or overly informative, and keeps to your argument so that you know the audience is still in tune with exactly whatever it is you are going to be arguing. Clarify video, image, or audio examples prior or subsequently. So in my mental health project here, I might show a video from the movie Silver Linings Playbook. This movie stars Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper, two people who are dealing with different mental health issues, one dealing with depression and the other one dealing with social anxiety. And what you want to make sure you do is that when you incorporate a video into your project, you want to clearly identify how it connects to your argument. So you either do that prior to showing the video, or you give me a subsequent examination and explain why you utilize this particular video in the project itself. In what way does it connect to your argument? In what way is important for people to see this? Why is this a good piece of reference material that contributes to what it is you are trying to argue? A lot of times, people will just show a video and they won't give any context or explanation as to how it connects to the topic. Make sure that you explain that either prior to showing the video or subsequently afterwards. Connect between transitions. It's easy for certain group members to just give their particular section, address it, and then not establish how it connects to the next person's section. If you were writing an essay, you would always make sure that you include a transition sentence. You would always make sure that you are establishing how one section connects to the other. Make sure that you do the same thing with your project. In my particular project, I did the same thing as the other group example that I showed you. I take different kinds of breaks. I ask different questions to kind of keep the audience engaged, keep them sort of on pace with the sort of outline that I've created that I want them to follow. Here, I establish the context for the Silver Linings Playbook example, and then I also end it with a subsequent question in regards to therapy, in regards to cultural standards about people who are labeled as crazy or emotionally unstable. I ask the audience of why there appears to be this stigma around this idea of being overly medicated and the problems that sort of arise with those sort of perceptions. And then lastly, leave a lasting impression. So one thing that you can do is that you can end where you began, and you can try to tie everything back to maybe initial questions that you had asked. You can ask the audience if they still have the same mentality that they started with. You can take another survey. You can end with potential images or videos, but you always want to make sure that you tie these particular ideas together with the context that I was talking about. Explain exactly what the images are there for. And in this case, this image, for the longest time, had it been 30, 40, 50 years ago, had we expressed concern about our emotions, a lot of times people would say, keep that to yourself. It's all in your head. It's all mental. And today we live in a culture where people are more accepting to believe when someone says, listen, I'm not feeling good, I don't feel right, then people will tell you it's okay. You have the right to feel whatever you're feeling. Let's talk about it. Let's get through it. So there's a lot more acceptance of trying to understand people's emotions and dealing with mental health. So when putting your project together, again, you want to make sure that you are considering the following things. You want to make sure that you're managing your time, you're getting your audience to think, or you're getting them informed, or both. You're establishing your context, your key areas of focus, and make sure that your thesis is clear. Make sure that you are either establishing an argument that is trying to create a bias that is supporting your particular side more thoroughly than your opponents, or that you are establishing an argument that suggests there needs to be a resolution to a problem. Either way, you'd need to make sure that you are providing some sort of oppositional point of view, whether that is limited to 20% of what your opponent might be saying, or an even 50-50 split if you're establishing a Rogerian argument. Make sure to develop your sections and consider utilizing those breaks in between each of your sections to keep the class engaged, or your audience engaged, I should say. Make sure to always clarify your videos, either prior to showing a video or audio clip, or examining them after you show them, to make sure you establish the connection to your argument. Make sure that you guys connect between your transitions, so in between each group member's section, and then make sure you're leaving a lasting impression. Remember, impressions are often the last thing, or conclusions are often the last thing people remember, so it's good to make sure that you don't have that fall short, that it's not shortened or limited, and it's as clear and as substantial as the previous sections of your project. Remember that by the end of this week, you guys need to have your project submitted along with your group annotated bibliography. Remember, group leaders are required to put the final project together. Make sure that you delegate different areas to different people. Group leaders are also required to put the final annotated bibliography together. However, remember that annotated bibliography, each individual member is responsible for two sources. So whoever doesn't contribute to the annotated bibliography will have their own grade affected, but it will not affect the rest of the group. Group leaders, obviously, since you're doing a little more work, you will get extra credit. Also, make sure to keep me informed if different group members are not responding to emails or to the discussion forum. They will be graded separately from the rest of the group as well. For those of you who are keeping a regular correspondence with one another, either via the discussion forum or the email, keep up the good work. Continue to talk to one another. And if you guys have questions, make sure that you do email me earlier rather than later. Do not wait until Saturday to email me. Remember, I will not look at any projects the day they are due, so make sure to get those questions and concerns into me earlier in the week. Keep on working, keep moving forward, and make sure to email me if you have any questions or concerns.